June 5, 1944. Near Caen, France. Rain sweeps across the fields of Normandy, turning dirt roads into rivers of mud. A cold wind pushes through the broken shutters of a small farmhouse now serving as a German command post. Inside, 5 men from the 12th SS Panzer Division huddle around a radio, its weak signal cutting in and out through the static. They are the crew of a Panther OSF. Turret number 211, one of the most formidable tanks in the German arsenal. 4 months, these men have fought along the Western Front, confident that no Allied tank can match them in power or precision. The Allies' primary tank, the American M4 Sherman, is, in their minds, a joke. The Sherman's armor can't match the Panther's thick sloped plates. Its gun, a 75mm cannon, is barely capable of scratching German steel beyond 500 meters. And when hit, the Sherman has a cruel reputation among German tankers. It burns quickly and violently, earning the grim nickname Tommy Cooker. In this quiet corner of Normandy, laughter replaces tension. To these men, the idea that such a tank could challenge them is absurd. Outside in the rain, the Panther rests beneath a net of camouflage. Its crew keeps her spotless. The Maybach V12 engine is tuned, the breech oiled, and 8 small white silhouettes are painted beneath the barrel, each marking a Sherman destroyed in battle. The loader, Franz Adler, barely 20 years old, adds another fresh layer of chalk to keep the symbols bright. The Panther is not just a machine to them, it is armor, weapon, and home. Inside the farmhouse, the radio sputters with a garbled voice. Allied bombers have been sighted over the channel. Paratroopers reported near Cherbourg. The officers dismiss it as another false alarm. For weeks, rumors of an Allied invasion have come and gone. The High Command insists the real landing will come at Pas-de-Calais, not here in Normandy. The men relax again. They eat cold rations, share cigarettes, and talk about their last engagement against British armor near Villers-Bocage. They remember the wrecks burning in the fields, Shermans split open like tin cans, their crews fleeing under machine gun fire. To the Germans, these are victories of proof. Their tanks are better, their training superior, their spirit unbroken. But beyond the channel, history is already in motion. At this same hour, the largest invasion force ever assembled is gathering. Over 150,000 Allied soldiers are boarding ships. More than 5,000 vessels stretch across the English coast. 10,000 aircraft stand ready to darken the skies. By dawn, those same soldiers and tanks that the Germans mock will come for Normandy. June 6, 1944, 5:30 hours. Off the coast of Normandy. The sea is a wall of steel. From the horizon to the beach, Allied landing craft advance through smoke and chaos. Naval guns thunder from miles away, shaking the sea. Inside one of those vessels, an American tank crew braces for impact. Their Sherman, an M4A1 named Doris, rocks violently in the surf. Sergeant Bill Harper, of the 2nd Armored Division, shouts orders over the roar of engines. His crew can barely hear him. The air smells of diesel, saltwater, and fear. 30 seconds, someone yells. The ramp drops. Water rushes in. The driver, Corporal Eddie Ross, slams the throttle forward. The tank lurches down the ramp into the sea. For a moment, it feels like the entire machine will sink. Then the treads grip sand. The Sherman crawls toward the beach, bullets sparking off its armor as it moves through the smoke. On Omaha and Gold beaches, hundreds of tanks like Doris fight to stay alive. Some sink before reaching shore. Others are torn apart by artillery or mines. But for every tank destroyed, another comes in behind it. The Shermans are not the best tanks on the battlefield. But they don't fight alone. They fight as part of a vast, coordinated machine, supported by engineers, infantry, artillery, and above all, air power. Back in Caen, word reaches Panther 211. The invasion has begun. Allied armor is pushing inland. The coast is lost. Within minutes, Mertens and his crew are ordered to move. The Panther's Maybach engine roars to life, echoing down the narrow roads of Normandy. As they advance toward the front, they pass retreating infantry, men dazed by the scale of the bombardment. The soldiers shout that the beaches are on fire, that the sky is full of aircraft. Mertens looks up through his periscope. The horizon is filled with the faint growl of engines. Above the clouds, Allied fighter bombers circle, waiting. For the first time, doubt flickers in his mind. Not because of what he can see, but because of what he cannot stop. The German army's finest machines are rolling toward a storm far greater than they realize. Ahead of them, Sherman Doris claws its way through hedgerows, one tank among hundreds. Both crews, German and American, are now unknowingly on a collision course that will define the future of armored warfare. And before the week is over, the laughter in that farmhouse will be gone forever. June 6, 1944, later that morning. Normandy. The beaches are chaos. Smoke hangs low over the water, drifting inland with the tide. The sound of gunfire never stops, a continuous roar of engines, explosions, and shouting carried by the wind. American armor is coming ashore. Some tanks have drowned in the surf, trapped by soft sand and hidden craters. Others crawl forward, tracks grinding over twisted metal and shattered concrete. Among them is Doris, Sergeant Bill Harper's M4 Sherman. Her olive-drab hull is scarred and wet, but the engine holds. Harper peers through the periscope. The view is smeared with seawater and sand. Ahead, a narrow break in the seawall offers a path inland. He calls for full throttle. The engine growls and the Sherman climbs through the breach. Infantry follows close behind, using the tank's bulk as moving cover. Every few seconds the main gun fires, a short, flat crack that echoes off the bluffs. By midday the Allies have secured thin strips of coastline. At Omaha the cost has been horrific. But the line holds. Engineers clear mines and obstacles, signaling the tanks forward. Shermans, Cromwells, and Churchill tanks begin their slow advance through the French countryside, the beginning of the inland push. The terrain ahead is unlike anything the crews have trained for. Normandy's fields are bordered by bocage, dense earthen hedgerows 3 or 4 feet high, laced with roots and stones. Each field is a fortress. The narrow lanes between them are perfect killing zones for German anti-tank guns and ambushes. A few kilometers inland, Oberfeldwebel Karl Mertens and the crew of Panther 211 move into position. The order from regimental command is clear: drive the invaders back into the sea. The Panther's 75mm KWK-42 is long and lethal, its muzzle brake glinting through the morning haze. The tank takes up a hull-down position on a slight ridge overlooking a sunken lane. Through his binoculars, Mertens can already see movement. Small groups of Allied infantry and the silhouettes of Shermans emerging from the hedgerows. He gives the order quietly. The gunner traverses left, lining up the crosshairs. The loader slides a high-velocity armor-piercing round into the chamber. The air inside the tank is thick with diesel and sweat. The first round leaves the barrel at nearly a kilometer per second. It hits the lead Sherman in the flank. The explosion lifts the turret clear from its mount. The German crew cheers. For the next hour, the fields of Normandy become a battlefield of sound. Metal striking metal, engines roaring, shells whistling overhead. By afternoon, Allied tanks have learned to adapt. Instead of charging through open lanes, they move in coordinated groups, using artillery smoke for concealment. Infantry with bazookas and Piats cover the flanks. Engineers blast gaps through the bocage using explosives and bulldozers welded to the front of Shermans. The rhythm of the invasion begins to shift. The Germans still hold the advantage in firepower, but the Allies have something the Panther crews lack: support from the sky. Typhoon fighter bombers of the Royal Air Force sweep low over the treetops. Their rockets streak down into German positions. The thunderclap of impact shakes the ground. For Mertens's crew there is no warning. The first rocket explodes 100 meters to their right, showering the Panther with dirt. The driver throws the tank into reverse, grinding gears as they back down the slope. The radio crackles with frantic voices, reports of columns caught in open ground, tanks burning, crews scattered. Mertens orders the engine shut down. The crew sits in silence as aircraft circle overhead. Sweat runs down their faces despite the cold. The war that once felt like a hunt has suddenly turned into survival. As night falls, both sides dig in. The beaches are secure, but the fight for Normandy has only begun. In the darkness, the sounds of repair echo through the hedgerows, tank crews replacing track links, refueling, patching armor with scavenged steel. In Cannes, German headquarters burns through the night. Allied bombers have struck again. The city glows on the horizon, a flickering beacon of fire. At the same hour, Sergeant Harper's Sherman sits in a shallow depression near the village of Colleville. The crew rests inside, exhausted. The air smells of smoke, gasoline, and cordite. They've lost half their platoon since morning. Yet more landing craft are already unloading fresh armor on the beaches. Replacement tanks, fuel, ammunition, an endless flow of war material. Harper knows that tomorrow they'll push deeper inland. For the Germans, the realization begins to sink in. Their tanks may outgun the Shermans, but they are few and they are hunted. Each Panther that breaks down must be towed or abandoned. Fuel is scarce, spare parts rarer still. For the Allies, the opposite is true. Their tanks may be less powerful, but there are more of them every hour. Logistics and numbers, the unglamorous weapons of war, are slowly tipping the balance. By midnight, rain begins to fall again. The Normandy countryside falls silent except for the distant rumble of artillery. Two opposing armored columns, one veteran, one newly arrived, prepare to meet in the tangled hedgerows between Bayeux and Cannes. The laughter that filled the farmhouse the night before has faded into radio static. Now only the sound of engines remains. June 7, 1944, the Bocage country south of Bayeux. Dawn breaks cold and gray. The fog lies heavy over the fields, clinging to the hedgerows like smoke. Beneath it, the ground trembles with the slow movement of armored columns. The American push inland has begun. For the men inside the Shermans, visibility is almost zero. Dew streaks the periscopes. Every bend in the road feels like an ambush waiting to happen. The countryside, beautiful in peacetime, has become a labyrinth of death. Narrow lanes flanked by earth walls thick with roots, perfect concealment for German guns. Sergeant Bill Harper rides again in Doris, his crew scanning the hedgerows for any sign of movement. The column advances cautiously, tank after tank, nose to tail, separated by just a few meters. To Harper, it feels like they're crawling into the jaws of something unseen. A few kilometers ahead, Oberfeldwebel Karl Mertens and Panther 211 have been ordered to delay the American advance near the village of Saint-Germain-la-Blancherbe. Mertens knows this terrain favors him. The Panther's long gun can destroy a Sherman at over 2 kilometers, long before the Americans can even see him. From a concealed position behind a hedgerow, he watches through binoculars as the first Allied tanks appear in the mist. He waits. The loader grips a shell, his gloved hands trembling slightly. Then at Mertens's signal, the Panther fires. The lead Sherman erupts in a burst of flame. Its turret spins halfway before the interior cooks off. The rest of the column slams to a halt. Smoke fills the lane. Crews scramble to reverse, engines roaring in panic. Mertens fires again, and again. Each shot is deliberate, mechanical. Within minutes, 3 Shermans lie burning, their crews scattering into the ditches. To the German tankers, it feels like the old balance of power has returned. The laughter inside the Panther is short and sharp, a momentary release from fear. But this time the Allies are ready. From above, P-47 Thunderbolts of the 9th Air Force sweep in low. Their wings glint in the sunlight as they dive toward the treeline. The first rockets streak toward the German positions. The blast throws dirt over Panther 211. The crew jolts violently inside as debris rains down. Mertens shouts for the driver to reverse, but the track has slipped into a drainage ditch. The Panther groans, stuck fast. The gunner traverses wildly, looking for the source of the attack. Another rocket strikes nearby, close enough to rattle the bolts loose inside the hull. Smoke fills the compartment. Mertens makes a decision. Abandon. The crew bails out into the field, taking cover in a shallow trench as the airstrike continues. Their tank, their pride, their symbol of invincibility, now burns behind them, black smoke twisting into the sky. For the Americans pushing forward, the destruction of a Panther is more than a tactical victory. It's psychological. Word spreads quickly along the armored columns. The big cats can die. Sherman crews begin to fight differently. Instead of engaging Panthers head-on, they call for artillery or air support to soften targets before closing in. Others flank through hedgerows, using numbers and mobility rather than brute strength. It's not glamorous, it's methodical. The Allies turn the battlefield into a system, each tank another cog in a relentless machine. Sergeant Harper's unit, now reinforced, advances again that afternoon. The wreckage of earlier battles smolders on both sides of the road, twisted steel, burned-out hulls, the stench of fuel and cordite heavy in the humid air. They pass what remains of Panther 211. Its turret lies askew, melted around the edges from the rocket blast. Harper glances at it through his periscope. For a moment he feels no triumph, only the weight of inevitability. The enemy's best armor lies silent, and yet he knows the fight ahead will only grow harder. By the end of the second day the front lines around can have solidified. The Allies hold the beaches and the first villages, but the Germans are entrenched across every hedgerow. The Panther and Tiger divisions still strike like sledgehammers when they can, quick, brutal ambushes followed by rapid withdrawals. Yet each engagement costs them men, machines, and time they can't replace. Every destroyed Panther is one fewer weapon Germany can field. Every hour that Allied tanks remain mobile, supplied, and reinforced draws the noose tighter. In the distance, the horizon flickers with the glow of artillery. Normandy's gentle hills have become a furnace, steel grinding against steel, fire against fire. As dusk settles, Harper's crew halts near a crossroads marked by the shattered sign of a small cafe. They eat in silence, the glow of their cigarettes hidden behind the hull. Above them, a faint rumble of engines continues, not tanks but aircraft. The Allied sky remains alive even at night. For the Germans huddled in the hedgerows, the sense of superiority that once defined their armor is fading into exhaustion and disbelief. The Sherman, mocked, dismissed, underestimated, is no longer just an inferior machine. It is a symbol of something the Reich cannot match: endurance. The first duels in the bocage have proven one thing. The war of machines is now a war of systems, and the Allies' system is winning. June 8, 1944, near Isigny-sur-Mer, Normandy. The rain hasn't stopped for days. It falls in thin, cold sheets, coating the landscape in a dull gray sheen. Beneath the hedgerows, mechanics work by lantern light, their wrenches clicking against the armor of a Sherman tank. This is the quiet rhythm of the Allied war machine, the unseen heartbeat behind every advance. Around them, a makeshift camp sprawls through the orchard. Fuel drums line the muddy track. Ammunition crates are stacked beneath tarps. Men move between tents, wet, tired, but determined. The invasion force is no longer a beachhead. It's an army fully ashore and growing stronger by the hour. Across Normandy, over 300,000 Allied troops are now in France. Each day, hundreds of tons of fuel, ammunition, spare parts, and food flow through the beaches at Omaha, Utah, and Gold. The Germans, meanwhile, are struggling to move even their own supplies. Bridges are gone, rail lines bombed, convoys strafed by Allied aircraft. For tankers like Sergeant Bill Harper, this difference is felt in every moment. When his Sherman throws a track, a repair crew arrives within hours. When ammunition runs low, resupply trucks follow within the day. The logistics chain is vast, efficient, flexible, alive. It's not glamorous. It doesn't make headlines. But it wins wars. For Oberfeldwebel Karl Mertens and what remains of his Panther company, the reality is the opposite. Of the 15 Panthers assigned to his unit on June 6, only 7 remain operational. 2 were destroyed by airstrikes. 4 sit disabled on the roadside, waiting for parts that may never come. The Panther is a masterpiece of engineering, but also a mechanical nightmare. Its final drive assembly wears out quickly, the transmission overheats, and the complex interleaved road wheels clog with mud. In the clean test tracks of Germany it was perfection. In the mud of Normandy, it is fragile. Mertens and his men scavenge from wrecks. They strip engines, swap gearboxes, cannibalize tracks. Every repair takes hours under threat of air attack. They fight exhaustion, hunger, and the creeping certainty that they are being ground down. By day the Allied advance is slow but relentless. Infantry move yard by yard, clearing hedgerows with grenades and flamethrowers. Tanks inch forward behind them, firing into the greenery. Each engagement feels small, a village, a crossroads, a farmhouse, but together they form a pattern. The Germans are being pushed back not by superior tanks but by superior endurance. The Allies' system of supply, repair, and replacement allows them to fight continuously. When a Sherman is destroyed, another takes its place. When a Panther breaks down, it vanishes from the line for good. The difference becomes even clearer in the skies above. Every morning, the drone of Allied aircraft begins at dawn and doesn't stop until dusk. P-47s, Spitfires, and Typhoons patrol the roads, attacking any German vehicle that dares to move in daylight. Convoys are shredded, bridges obliterated. Even tanks parked beneath trees risk discovery from the air. For Mertens's unit, movement now happens only at night. They roll silently through the countryside, headlights covered, engines muffled. The darkness offers safety, but it also isolates them. Every kilometer driven burns precious fuel they cannot replace. The once proud columns of panzers are now ghosts in the night, surviving by stealth. Meanwhile, at Allied headquarters, the war has turned into a calculation. Generals and engineers study charts showing fuel flow, maintenance cycles, replacement rates. They understand that every Sherman lost can be replaced from factories in Britain or the United States within weeks. The Allies are not merely fighting battles, they're managing an industrial process of destruction and renewal. And that process, as slow as it may seem, is inexorable. On the night of June 9, Harper's platoon receives orders to advance toward a small village south of Isigny. Rain still falls, the fields turn to swamp. As Doris moves out, Harper can feel the mud pulling at the tracks, the engine straining. The radio crackles with reports of enemy armor ahead, possibly Panthers, possibly Tigers. The crew is quiet. No one speaks of fear, but it hangs in the air. They know that in a straight duel their Sherman will almost certainly lose. But they also know they don't have to fight fair. They fight as part of something vast, a network of men, machines, and air power that moves like a living organism. A few miles away, Mertens's reduced platoon prepares an ambush along a sunken road. They camouflage their tanks with branches, set overlapping fields of fire, and wait in the darkness. The Panthers' optics are superior. Their guns can penetrate a Sherman from over a kilometer away. For a brief moment, it feels like the old balance has returned, the hunter waiting for his prey. But in the early hours the clouds break. Moonlight filters through, illuminating the fields. Then, faintly, the low hum of engines, but not from the ground. Aircraft again. Mertens clenches his jaw as rockets streak through the night. The ground erupts in flame. The ambush dissolves before it even begins. He looks up from his shallow trench, eyes reflecting the glow of his burning tank. The realization is simple and cruel. Even the best weapon is useless if it can't move, can't hide, can't be supplied. In Normandy, the myth of German invincibility is being dismantled piece by piece. Not by luck. Not by superior firepower. But by organization, the ability to sustain the fight when the enemy cannot. For every Panther lost, 10 Shermans arrive. For every German tank trapped in the mud, a dozen Allied engineers are already paving new roads. The war of steel is becoming a war of systems. And the system that never sleeps will ultimately prevail. The battlefield is changing. And soon even the Germans' most feared weapon, the Tiger itself, will find that numbers, not names, decide the fate of Normandy. June 13, 1944, Villers-Bocage, Normandy. Morning mist rolls across the French countryside as the small town of Villers-Bocage wakes beneath the rumble of distant artillery. Cobblestone streets glisten from the night's rain. The smell of damp hay and diesel hangs in the air. Through the haze comes a column of British armor, Cromwells, Fireflies, and supporting Shermans from the 7th Armored Division, the famous Desert Rats. Their mission: strike quickly west of Caen and exploit a gap in German defenses. At their head rides Major Bill Cotton, a veteran of North Africa. His confidence is steady. The Germans, he believes, are on the run. But hidden among the orchards south of town is one of the deadliest tank aces of the war, SS Obersturmführer Michael Wittmann, commander of a Tiger I. The Tiger I is a monster, 60 tons of armor, armed with the feared 88mm gun. Its silhouette is tall, unmistakable, and terrifying. Wittmann has already destroyed dozens of Allied tanks on the Eastern Front. Here in Normandy he waits again, alone with only a handful of supporting vehicles farther back. Through his optics he watches the British column entering Villers-Bocage. He decides to act. The Tiger lurches forward from concealment, its massive engine shaking the ground. Within seconds it's on the road behind the column. The first British tank bursts into flame. Then another. And another. The ambush is surgical. One by one the British vehicles burn along the street, their crews fleeing into doorways. Wittmann's gunner works with mechanical precision. Each shot a single, final statement of German engineering at its deadliest. Within 15 minutes the town center is a wreck. The Allies' first major armored thrust inland has been shattered. The Battle of Villers-Bocage becomes legend. For the Germans, it is proof that the Tiger remains unmatched. For the Allies, it is a brutal reminder that courage alone cannot replace caution. But beneath the legend lies another truth, one that will define the rest of the campaign. The Tiger is unstoppable, until it runs out of fuel. While Wittmann's attack stalls the British advance for a day, his own division soon finds itself trapped by logistics. The Tiger's 700 horsepower engine devours fuel at an astonishing rate, nearly 4 gallons per mile. The supply columns that once fed it are under constant attack from Allied fighter bombers. The few remaining refueling trucks arrive late or not at all. Maintenance is worse. The heavy transmission often fails after just a few hours of operation. Tracks break under the strain of Normandy's uneven ground. Spare parts are almost impossible to find. By the end of the week, half of Wittmann's company's Tigers are immobilized not by combat, but by their own mechanical fragility. The Allies adapt once again. They study the Tiger's patterns, where it hides, how it moves when it fires. Artillery spotters mark suspected ambush sites, and fighter bombers are called in with increasing precision. The Royal Air Force's Typhoons become the scourge of German armor. Each carries 8 rockets, each rocket capable of penetrating the thinner top armor of a Tiger or Panther. They hunt in pairs, using smoke trails to mark targets for following wings. On June 15, an RAF pilot reports, 1 Tiger destroyed near Villers-Bocage. hit from 300 feet. The wreck smolders beside a hedgerow, its turret blown off, the myth of invincibility cracked once more. 4 Allied tankers. The lessons come fast. Crews begin to value speed and coordination over sheer armor. They use smoke rounds to blind German optics, call in artillery before advancing, and rely on the one weapon that never runs out of ammunition: radio communication. Inside every Sherman, every Firefly, every command post, voices connect through static. Position reports, target calls, requests for air cover. It is the sound of modern warfare, the orchestra of coordination that Germany can no longer match. For the men on the ground, the difference feels subtle at first. A few fewer ambushes, a few quicker responses, but it grows daily. The German giants still roar, but now they are isolated, each fighting its own small war. Whitman's Tiger will continue to fight, through June, through July, but each engagement becomes riskier, each escape narrower. The once mighty armored divisions that had conquered Europe are now fighting blind, cut off from fuel, surrounded by air power they can neither escape nor defeat. For Allied soldiers, the Tiger remains a symbol of terror, but also of something else: desperation. A relic of a war machine that no longer knows how to sustain itself. By mid-June, the Battle of Villers-Bocage is over. The town lies in ruins. British forces regroup and continue the advance, supported by an endless chain of reinforcements and supplies pouring from the beaches. The Shermans that survived are repaired within days. New crews arrive. The same names, Doris, Lucky Strike, Thunderbolt, reappear on fresh hulls rolling off the landing craft. Steel can be replaced. Men can be trained. The machine keeps moving. And for every German tank that fires from the shadows, a dozen Allied aircraft circle above, waiting. In the story of Normandy, Villers-Bocage stands as a paradox, a triumph of German skill and the beginning of its end. Because on that morning, amid the smoke and rubble, the world saw both the brilliance and the fatal flaw of Germany's armored might. The Tiger could win battles. But the Allies were learning how to win wars. The storm of Normandy is far from over. Ahead lies the heart of German resistance, where hundreds of Shermans and Panthers will collide in the largest tank battles of the Western Front. June 17, 1944, Normandy. The city lies like a jewel at the center of the Allied advance. Streets twist through medieval ruins, spires rising above shattered roofs. Smoke curls from bombed-out factories and collapsed homes, mingling with the scent of wet earth and burnt fuel. Lieutenant John Harrison, commanding a Sherman platoon of the 2nd Armored Brigade, checks his map for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. His crew, Thompson, Baker, and Wilson, wait in tense silence inside the green-painted hull of Victory. The men have seen Villers-Bocage, they know the Tigers are near. Across the fields, hidden behind hedgerows and the remains of bombed barns, Panthers and Tigers lie in wait. German tankers have learned from previous engagements: stealth, patience, and firepower are their allies. Each German commander knows the rules of the battlefield: shoot first, strike hard, and vanish before counterattack. For the Allies, every advance is a careful balance of aggression and survival. Shermans push forward in columns, their 75mm guns ready, while Fireflies, faster, better-armed Shermans, keep watch for the superior armor of the Panthers. Inside the German command post, Oberstleutnant Kurt Meyer studies aerial photographs. His notes are precise: Sherman armor, cannon caliber, firing positions. Yet he is acutely aware of the numbers problem. Allied tanks arrive in waves, their supply lines unbroken, their air cover omnipresent. A single Tiger or Panther cannot stop the tide alone. Yet stop it they must try. The first engagement begins near Ruckeville, a few kilometers east of Cannes. Shermans advance cautiously, their engines muted to avoid detection. Suddenly, a Panther erupts from a hedgerow, firing its 75mm gun. The first Sherman is shredded, its turret spun into the wheat field. Crew members scramble, smoke and fire consuming everything. Lieutenant Harrison orders a counterattack. Victory swings forward, returning fire. Shells strike the Panther's side, but the thick armor resists. One Sherman falls. Another catches fire. The firefight is brief but brutal, seconds that feel like hours. It is close combat at a distance, calculation against instinct. Allied coordination begins to show its advantage. Radio calls direct supporting fire, artillery shells arc toward German positions. Within minutes, 2 more Panthers are knocked out, trapped in open ground. By the end of the day, both sides have suffered. The Allies have lost 17 Shermans, the Germans 6 Panthers and 3 Tigers. But the critical difference is clear: replacement tanks and crews arrive faster than casualties can drain them. Every disabled Sherman is soon replaced, every lost crew supplemented with reinforcements from the beachhead. The Germans, for all their superior individual machines, cannot match this pace. Their elite armor units are finite. Every Panther destroyed is a blow from which they cannot recover quickly. In the streets of Caen itself, infantry and tanks fight side by side. Shermans provide suppressive fire, creeping through ruins, while Canadian and British infantry push into buildings, clearing German strongpoints. Every corner could hide a tiger, every street a deadly ambush. The battle transforms the city into a labyrinth of fire and rubble. By nightfall, entire blocks are unrecognizable. Civilians who remain watch from hidden corners as tanks grind through the streets, machine guns rattling, shells tearing walls apart. Amid the chaos, one Sherman crew notes the pattern. The Germans fight brilliantly but predictably. They strike with precision then vanish. They rely on ambushes and superior firepower. The Allies, however, adapt quickly using combined arms, radio coordination, and numerical superiority to anticipate and counter each strike. The psychological effect is profound. German tankers, long confident in the invincibility of their Panthers and Tigers, begin to doubt. Crews report over radios, voices tight with frustration. They keep coming. We knock out one, 10 more appear. For the Allies, confidence grows in turn. Shermans, once mocked as Ronsons or Tommy Cooks, that caught fire easily, prove resilient when used in numbers and combined with proper tactics. Crews begin to trust in fire and maneuver over sheer armor. By June 20th, the outer defenses of Caen are under continuous pressure. German counterattacks are blunted repeatedly. Air superiority allows fighter bombers to strike supply lines and destroy tanks before they can reach the front. The overwhelming weight of logistics, fuel, ammunition, reinforcements, becomes as lethal as the guns themselves. Caen teaches a vital lesson: technology alone cannot secure victory. The Panther may destroy a Sherman in a duel, the Tiger may strike terror into the heart of a platoon, but war is not decided by individual skill alone. It is decided by numbers, coordination, and endurance. By June 22, the city remains in German hands, but the Allies have laid the groundwork for encirclement. The relentless pressure, the continuous assault, the calculated replacement of men and machines, all signal the beginning of the end for German armor in Normandy. Sherman crews, once ridiculed and dismissed, have shown they can outlast, outmaneuver, and ultimately crush the vaunted German tanks when supported by the full weight of Allied resources. The stage is set for the next phase, Operation Goodwood, where hundreds of tanks, both Sherman and Panther, will collide in the largest armored assault yet seen in Normandy. Shermans are no longer just the laughingstock of German intelligence. They are the backbone of an unstoppable advance, a rolling tide of steel and determination that will define the campaign for Normandy. July 18, 1944, eastern approaches to Caen, Normandy. The sky is gray, heavy with clouds, and the fields east of Caen shimmer with dew. From a distance, the faint hum of engines grows louder, a mechanical heartbeat that will soon shake the earth. On the ground, Lieutenant Colonel Peter de la Billière surveys the assembly area for the British armored divisions. Hundreds of tanks, Shermans, Fireflies, Cromwells, stretch across the fields like a metallic river waiting to surge forward. Support trucks, artillery, and engineers weave between them. Smoke from engine exhaust mixes with the early morning fog, creating a surreal, almost dreamlike battlefield. The plan is audacious. Operation Goodwood, a massive armored assault to punch through German defenses and seize the high ground beyond Caen. The Allies intend to overwhelm German armor not through individual tank superiority, but with numbers, firepower, and coordination. Across the German lines, General Heinrich Eberbach prepares his Panthers and Tigers. The defenders know what awaits them: a flood of Allied steel supported by artillery barrages and fighter bombers above. Inside a Panther, Lieutenant Friedrich Vogel tightens his grip on the controls. His crew has fought the Shermans before and knows their reputation. Still, confidence remains high. One Panther, one Tiger can still destroy multiple Shermans, if positioned well, if used wisely. Yet the mathematics are against them. The British and Canadians have hundreds of tanks ready. Fuel is abundant. Ammunition flows continuously from the beaches. Every German tank lost can rarely be replaced. Every Sherman lost is soon replaced, often with a better crew and updated tactics. At 7:30 the artillery opens. Hundreds of shells fall across the German front lines, flattening hedgerows, ripping through orchards and shaking the earth. Dust and smoke veil the battlefield, obscuring the advancing columns. Shermans move forward in waves coordinated by radio. Fireflies take point, scanning for Panthers. Infantry follows, securing each village and crossroad. Tanks maneuver in close support, suppressing German guns with accurate, disciplined fire. The Germans respond. Tigers and Panthers strike from hidden positions, scoring kills against isolated Shermans. But as the minutes pass, the overwhelming numbers and relentless coordination of the Allies begin to tell. By noon, the battlefield is chaos. Wrecked Shermans smolder along the roads and Panthers lie knocked out in open fields. Fire spread through hedgerows and orchards. Smoke and the acrid smell of diesel hang thick. Yet the advance continues. Allied crews, trained to fight under fire and replace losses seamlessly, keep pushing. Communication networks allow units to adapt instantly. A destroyed tank is reported, a new formation is called, supporting artillery redirected, infantry alerted. The battle is a living machine of men and steel. Lieutenant Colonel de la Billière radios instructions, his voice steady despite the destruction around him. Orders are precise. Exploit gaps, suppress enemy fire, maintain the momentum. Each Sherman is part of a larger system, each crew a cog in the relentless Allied engine. Above, RAF Typhoons swoop down, rockets blasting German positions and supply lines. Panthers attempting to maneuver are caught in the open. Tigers waiting in ambush are destroyed before they can strike. The combination of air power, artillery, and armored coordination is devastating. By nightfall, the Allies have advanced several kilometers, capturing villages and ridges once thought impregnable. German resistance remains stubborn, but the balance is clear. No single Tiger, no handful of Panthers, can stop the flood of Allied Shermans backed by artillery, air support, and unbroken logistics. Operation Goodwood is a lesson in modern armored warfare. The Germans still possess superior tanks individually. The Tiger can destroy a Sherman with a single shot. The Panther is deadly in skilled hands. But the Shermans endure. They move in overwhelming numbers, coordinated strikes, and relentless pressure. Losses are high, hundreds of Shermans are destroyed or disabled, yet replacements arrive quickly and crews rotate in without slowing the advance. The numerical advantage, combined with relentless supply chains and air superiority, begins to erode the myth of German invincibility. What was once feared as the ultimate armored weapon now faces attrition the Reich cannot match. By the end of July 18, the fields east of Caen are littered with wreckage, burned Shermans, shattered Panthers, toppled hedgerows. But the story is not in the destruction. It is in the system behind it. The Allies have proven a critical truth. Industrial capacity, combined arms, and relentless coordination can defeat even the most feared tanks in the world. A Tiger or Panther may dominate a duel, but it cannot survive a war waged with numbers, strategy, and endless supplies. The Shermans, once mocked and underestimated, are no longer just tanks. They are the backbone of a campaign, a symbol of Allied endurance, and the instrument that will grind down German armor across Normandy. The flood of steel has begun. Caen is only the beginning. For the Germans, it is a warning. Brilliance in isolation cannot withstand the combined might of a nation's industry, training, and coordination. For the Allies, the lesson is clear. Keep moving, keep fighting, and never let the momentum falter. Every Sherman in the field is a step closer to victory. Every Panther destroyed is proof that numerical and logistical superiority can crush even the most formidable opponents. The war in Normandy will continue, and the Shermans, once the laughingstock of the Wehrmacht, are about to rewrite the rules of armored warfare. August 1, 1944, Villers-Bocage, Normandy. The village sits in the morning fog like a forgotten relic. Narrow cobblestone streets twist between half-collapsed houses, chimneys still smoking from previous bombardments. Here, the memory of June's ambush lingers, the story of Panzer ace Michael Wittmann, who cut through British armor with surgical precision, leaving dozens of Shermans burning in his wake. Today the Allies return, wiser, stronger, and determined not to repeat past mistakes. Major George Wilkins, commanding a mixed Sherman and Firefly battalion, peers through his binoculars from a ridge overlooking the village. He recalls the lessons of June: avoid choke points, maintain interlocking fields of fire, and never underestimate the Panther lurking behind a building or in a hedgerow. The Shermans move in carefully coordinated columns, supported by engineers clearing mines and obstacles. Fireflies advance on flanks, ready to engage any heavy armor. Artillery observers relay real-time corrections, shelling suspected ambush points before the tanks reach them. As the battalion approaches the village outskirts, German resistance flares. A Panther opens fire from a side street, scoring a direct hit on a Sherman. Flames rise and crew members scramble, some already retreating under smoke cover. But this time the response is different. A second Firefly swings into position, its 17-pounder cannon piercing the Panther's flank. Another Sherman provides suppressive fire. Within minutes, the threat is neutralized. The village is no longer an ambush waiting to happen. It is a battlefield carefully controlled by the Allies. Inside the remaining German command posts, Oberleutnant Heinrich Schultz and his officers watch in disbelief. Their tanks, once considered invincible, are falling under sustained, coordinated fire. Every maneuver anticipated. Every flanking attempt met with counterattack. The Germans fight fiercely, yet each loss compounds the problem. Unlike the Allies, they cannot replace tanks and crews at will. Each Panther destroyed is a permanent attrition. Each Tiger immobilized a setback they cannot recover from quickly. By mid-morning, the Allies have entered Villers-Bocage proper. Sherman crews methodically clear streets, using combined arms to flush out German positions. Infantry moves in tandem with tanks, grenades and flamethrowers neutralizing stubborn strongpoints. Lieutenant Charles Baker, riding in Resolute, notes the change in German morale. Radios intercept panicked voices. They keep coming. We cannot stop them. More tanks, more men, everywhere. The Sherman, once dismissed as a cigar lighter, proves itself in the crucible of urban combat. Its mobility allows rapid repositioning. Its guns, when paired with the Fireflies, can penetrate even Panther armor. And above all, its endurance allows crews to press forward, absorbing casualties while maintaining the offensive. By evening, Villers-Bocage has changed hands. The Allies have suffered losses, several Shermans destroyed, dozens of casualties, but the village is secured. The lesson is stark. German armor, no matter how technically superior, cannot stand against combined Allied strategy, superior logistics and overwhelming numbers. The psychological impact is profound. German tank crews, previously confident in the superiority of Panthers and Tigers, now speak in hushed tones. Memoirs and diaries later recorded the realization that skill and bravery alone cannot counter relentless waves of men and machines. The Allies' success at Villers-Bocage demonstrates a recurring truth in Normandy. Individual heroics, no matter how impressive, are insufficient when faced with an enemy that can absorb losses, maintain supply lines and coordinate actions across multiple units. Shermans, once derided, have proven themselves indispensable. They are not the fastest, nor the most heavily armored, nor the most glamorous. But in the context of a sustained campaign, they are devastating. They outnumber, outlast, and outmaneuver the vaunted German armor, reshaping the battlefield in favor of the Allies. The echoes of Villers-Bocage ripple across Normandy. German commanders begin to question their doctrine, their confidence shaken by repeated engagements with Shermans. The myth of invincible armor is fading. Sherman crews, hardened by weeks of fighting, now move with purpose and discipline, aware that their tanks, once mocked, are instruments of both survival and victory. The war for Normandy is far from over, but the tide has shifted. The Germans have learned too late that no Panther or Tiger, however expertly driven, can withstand the combined power of Allied steel, numbers, and resolve. The stage is set for the final, decisive battles of the Normandy campaign. August 12, 1944, the Falaise region, Normandy. The sun rises over Normandy's rolling hills, illuminating a landscape scarred by weeks of relentless combat. Villages lie in ruins, fields churned into mud by the treads of hundreds of tanks, and smoke from artillery fires drifts lazily across the horizon. Allied forces are closing in. For weeks, they have pushed the Germans back from Cannes-Villers-Bocage and the surrounding countryside. Now the objective is simple, yet brutal. Encircle and annihilate the remnants of the German 7th Army in what will be called the Falaise Pocket. Major General John Crocker, overseeing British armored divisions, watches the advance carefully. Tanks and infantry coordinate, moving in tight, disciplined formations. Sherman crews, aware of the stakes, know that this is not just a fight for territory, it is a trap designed to end the German armored threat in Normandy once and for all. Inside a Panther, Hauptmann Karl Richter grips his steering wheel, sweat running down his face. His unit is already battered from previous encounters. Several tanks destroyed, crews killed or wounded. The German High Command had promised invincible armor, yet now even Panthers and Tigers struggle against relentless waves of Shermans and accompanying infantry. The Allies' strategy is clear: close the pocket from north and south simultaneously. The Americans push from the west, the Canadians from the east, while British armor cuts off escape routes to the south. Every move is coordinated through radio communications, aerial reconnaissance and artillery spotters. The Germans respond with desperation. Panthers and Tigers attempt to break through, but the sheer weight of Allied numbers overwhelms them. Roads become death traps. Open fields offer no cover. Every attempt to escape meets suppressive fire, rocket strikes from Typhoons, and well-aimed shots from Fireflies. By mid-afternoon, chaos reigns inside the pocket. Sherman columns advance relentlessly, moving over destroyed terrain and wrecked German armor. Smoke and fire obscure the battlefield, but coordination does not falter. Infantry and tanks support each other in a deadly ballet of combined arms. Lieutenant Edward Harris, commanding a Sherman platoon, watches as a Tiger emerges from a village street. His Firefly partner opens fire, hitting the Tiger squarely in the flank. The shell explodes, sending flames into the sky. The remaining Panthers hesitate, trapped between advancing Shermans and blocking infantry. This is attrition at its purest. Each German loss is permanent. There is no replacement, no repair, no reinforcement. For every Sherman destroyed, another is ready to take its place. The Germans, once feared for their technological superiority, now face the consequences of Allied production, coordination, and logistics. As evening falls, the Falaise pocket closes. Thousands of German soldiers are trapped. Hundreds of tanks lie destroyed or abandoned. The remaining Panthers and Tigers, formidable individually, cannot survive the calculated onslaught of Shermans supported by overwhelming Allied firepower. German diaries and post-war accounts describe the horror of those final hours. Soldiers fleeing through narrow gaps, tanks immobilized in mud, artillery shells cutting down every attempt to break free. "We were surrounded," one German officer later wrote. "We had the best tanks in the world, yet nothing could save us from this relentless tide." The Falaise pocket marks a turning point. The myth of invincible German armor, built on Panthers and Tigers, is shattered not by a single duel, but by the industrial, logistical, and tactical might of the Allies. The Shermans, once derided as inferior, have outlasted and outmaneuvered their supposedly superior opponents. They are not the fastest, the strongest, or the most heavily armored. But they are numerous, coordinated, and backed by an army that can replace losses faster than the Germans can absorb them. This is modern warfare. A combination of numbers, strategy, and unyielding momentum. Individual skill cannot compensate for lack of reinforcements or dwindling supplies. The Germans learned this too late, their pride and confidence eroded by repeated encounters with Shermans in Normandy. By August 21, the Falaise pocket has collapsed. Tens of thousands of German troops are killed, captured, or trapped. Hundreds of Panthers and Tigers are lost, their technological superiority irrelevant against the overwhelming numbers and coordination of Sherman tanks, infantry, artillery, and air support. For the Allies, Normandy has been won not through individual brilliance alone, but through a methodical, relentless application of combined arms, logistics, and industrial power. The Sherman, once the butt of jokes among German tank crews, has become the backbone of victory. The battlefields of Normandy will forever bear witness to a profound truth. Superior technology is irrelevant without the means to sustain it. Courage cannot replace numbers, skill cannot replace logistics, and even the mightiest tank is powerless against a tide of coordinated steel. The Sherman has survived, endured, and triumphed. The Germans have learned a lesson that would echo through the remainder of the war. Sometimes it is not the quality of the weapon but the relentless will behind it that decides the outcome. August 25, 1944, Normandy, France. The sun rises over a landscape battered and scarred. Fields once green are now churned into mud. Villages, leveled by artillery, smolder as smoke drifts lazily across shattered streets. Sherman tanks, blackened and scorched, sit among wreckage, their crews weary but resolute. The Allies have advanced. The German army is broken, and the tide of the Normandy campaign has irrevocably turned. The M4 Sherman, once dismissed by German tank crews as a cigar lighter, stands victorious, not through individual superiority, but through the relentless combination of numbers, strategy, and industrial might. For every Panther or Tiger destroyed, 10 Shermans could be replaced. For every squad lost, a fresh platoon arrived to take its place, supplied, fed, and reinforced. Sergeant William Bill Carver of the 2nd Armored Division notes in his journal, "We are tired, yes. But the tanks keep coming and the men keep moving. The Germans cannot match us. We just keep pressing forward." The Germans, by contrast, are trapped in an arithmetic they cannot win. Panthers are formidable, Tigers imposing, yet their crews are finite, their fuel and ammunition dwindling, and their replacements impossible to match against American production lines. German soldiers' diaries from Normandy describe the shock of facing Shermans again and again. Lieutenant Friedrich Meinhardt writes, "At first we laughed at them. The Sherman is light, underarmed, and fragile. We could destroy it in a single shot. But then, they kept coming. Waves of them. They never stopped. They did not retreat. Even when burned, another took its place." Allies had learned the hard lessons of Villers-Bocage, Caen, and Corentin. They had perfected coordination. Infantry, armor, and artillery moving as one, backed by air superiority. Sherman crews, once underestimated, now worked in tight units, flanking, suppressing, and supporting each other. Their weaknesses were compensated for by sheer numbers, tactical innovation, and an industrial machine capable of sustaining any loss. The psychological impact on German tank crews was profound. They had trained under the doctrine of superiority, proud of Panthers and Tigers, confident in their technological edge. Yet the reality of Normandy shattered that belief. Repeated encounters with Shermans paired with Allied infantry, artillery, and aircraft revealed a painful truth. Technological superiority alone could not overcome relentless coordination, overwhelming numbers, and logistical resilience. Oberleutnant Hans Dietrich, captured later in Normandy, would write, "We were trained to believe our tanks were invincible. In Normandy I saw them fall again and again. The men inside did not stop. The tanks did not stop. We were outnumbered, outsupplied, and outlasted. The Sherman, which we mocked, became our undoing." By the end of August, the Normandy campaign had decisively demonstrated a simple, brutal truth. In modern warfare, numbers, coordination, and industrial capacity often outweigh individual technological superiority. The Sherman tank was never meant to outmatch a Panther in a duel. But it was designed to endure, to multiply, to be deployed in overwhelming waves that German doctrine and production could not counter. Allied air power ensured that German supply lines were constantly harried, preventing resupply or reinforcement. Combined arms doctrine meant that even the most formidable German tank could be neutralized if isolated or outflanked. The battlefield became a calculus of attrition, one the Allies were uniquely equipped to win. The German myth of invincible armor was shattered not by a single hero, not by a lone ambush, but by the disciplined application of men, machines, and strategy on a scale the Wehrmacht could no longer match. Sherman crews, once ridiculed, became the backbone of victory in Normandy. Their persistence, training, and the industrial might behind them proved unstoppable. In the diaries and post-war testimonies of German soldiers, a recurring theme emerges: admiration, fear, and disbelief at an enemy who would fight, fall, and fight again, whose machines, though individually inferior, could not be defeated by any means Germany had left to offer. The Normandy campaign taught a stark lesson to Germany and the world: superior technology alone cannot win a war. It is the combination of material, logistics, strategy, and human will, the capacity to absorb losses, adapt, and sustain the fight, that defines victory. Shermans, once laughed at, became symbols of endurance and resolve. They crushed Panthers, outlasted Tigers, and carried Allied forces through the hedgerows and villages of Normandy. By August 1944, the Allies had proven that numbers, coordination, and relentless willpower could turn the tide of war. German soldiers who had once mocked the Sherman would carry a simple truth to the grave: it was not the tank itself that was invincible, but the army that wielded it, the industrial machine that supplied it, and the unyielding men who never stopped fighting. Normandy was won. The Sherman had triumphed. And the myth of German armored supremacy had been forever broken.